On the final Sunday before Christmas, this fourth Sunday of Advent, the church gives us an interesting pair of readings and the first reading in the Gospel. And they're very interesting to look at together. So in this first reading from the second book of Samuel, we have King David who wants to build the Lord a temple, which seems like a good thing to do, right? He's sitting in his own palace and he wants to build a temple. And the prophet Nathan tells him, after the Lord talks to the prophet Nathan, that David isn't the one to build a temple, that God has been dwelling with his people in all circumstances, and actually David's son will go on to build the temple, Solomon. And then, of course, in our reading from the Gospel, we have the Annunciation, where the angel Gabriel comes and tells Mary that she's going to be the mother of God, that she will conceive with the Son of God himself, with Jesus. And so we have these two readings about God's dwelling on earth. And that this, of course, is the purpose of Christmas, is that God chose to reveal himself and chose to dwell among us, and ultimately calls us to dwell with him in heaven, in the New Jerusalem, and the new heavens and the new earth for all eternity. But for the time being, we have these two stories from salvation history. And I think what's interesting about this is that I used to read this reading from 2 Samuel and be kind of confused as to why David seems almost kind of corrected for wanting to do a good thing, right? He wants to build a temple for the Lord. Of course, we love to build nice things for the Lord. SMAParish itself is a beautiful church. But I think this is one of the main distinctions, that it's kind of easy to see how King David feels pretty secure. He's been king, he's been very successful. He's literally sitting in his own palace. It says, this reading starts out, when King David was settled in his palace, and the Lord had given him rest from his enemies on every side. Right? So it's in this situation that David wants to do something for the Lord. And it almost kind of sounds like David feels like it's time for him to throw God a bone, as if he's now in a position to do God a favor, that he has his life built up, put together, and that now he's ready to kind of pull some strings for the Lord, that he's ready to do something for him. And God has to remind him, that's not how God works. It's not that you can ever repay anything fully back to the Lord. God has always been in control in this situation. And if he wanted a temple previously, he would have made that happen. He doesn't rely on David to do things for him. He asked David to do things for him, but God is so much bigger than what David sees and what David can do. And so God has to remind him, no, my dwelling is in my control, and what's going to happen, I already have planned out. So I don't want you to fulfill this task. Even though the task in and of itself is a noble thing, he says that now is not the time or place. And contrast that to the attitude of Mary, right? So the angel Gabriel comes to her and tells her that the Lord is with her and that she's going to conceive in her womb and bear a son. And Mary asks how, right? Mary doesn't wrestle with the question of what she's supposed to do for God, right? When the call is presented, she's ready to do anything for the Lord. Don't get me wrong. It's not that she's never thought, what can I do for God? But she knows it's not up to her to decide what she's going to do for God. It's up to God to decide that. And of course, we get the famous line, behold, I am the handmaid of the Lord. May it be done to me according to your word. Right? So Mary's attitude is total humility, total servants to the Lord. She doesn't try to take God's plan and fit her will onto it. In other words, that she's not trying to do good things insofar as she does what she wants and every once in a while does something for God, but rather her life is the other way around. Her life is totally submitted to the will of God, whatever it may be. And she didn't seem to always know what it was, right? This was a surprise to her. It's not as if she lived her whole life knowing what she was going to do this one specific day of the Annunciation, but rather that at any moment she's ready to give anything and everything to God, and that she listens to him. So when he speaks, she's ready. And she, as God's handmaid, became the greatest instrument of salvation among any of us humans. So let us pray to be more like her, and especially at this time of Christmas, grow in devotion and love to Our Lady.